Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the News Behind the News with Ralph Cantava on Mix 94.7 FM. And today's program is definitely going to be an interesting one. I have here with me Miss Glenderlin Holiday. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming on the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. It's kind of exciting at this time of the year.
Cool. Exciting, I would say yes, because, for one of the reasons I invited you is because you are the director of the Philipsburg Jubilee Library. And we know that the library could definitely use a lot of attention and like that. It's soon we'll be hitting the rebuilding phase. It was devastated, unfortunately, by Hurricane Irma.
Yes.
But for a lot of us, especially in my generation, we have a lot of great memories of being at the library, whether it was hanging out near the pond, using it as an excuse to meet up with our friends and then from there go to the boardwalk. But also doing all those projects and whatnot. The persons who were at the library, persons who were not there, for example, like Mr. Plantain, I still remember him. And so many other faces who are still here, Yeah, it is a significant thing. It is definitely part of, us as St. Martiners. And so we're going to get into that. But before we do, for those who may not know you, could you tell us a bit about your background, and then we continue from there?
As I said, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Glenderlin Holiday. My background is education, and I have joined the library on January 1st, 2020. I have been in education, I would say, for over 37 years. And I made use of the opportunity when it was advertised to throw in my 2 cents and see if I would be selected among the group. And I think God had it so that I was selected. And I have been there now going into 3 years. January 1st this year made it 2, so I'm now in my 3rd year. And I can say I am very glad that I made that decision, because I'm seeing now with my educational background and my community-minded spirit and the willingness to always try and help with the development of all levels, whether the little ones or the older ones, I think I'm getting an opportunity together with the board of the Philipsburg Jubilee Library and the staff of the library to make my contribution in the area of literacy development.
Yeah. And literacy development, that is something that is, always be necessary in helping to build a nation.
Yes, it is.
That we can never let up on, no matter how much things advance. Because with reading, it helps with your comprehension ability, critical thinking, and so forth. So I'm curious about what was your focus, upon becoming director of the library? What was there to deal with, and then what was your focus?
Okay, first of all, when I got the position, one of the biggest conversation was, how do we get the library rebuilt? How do we get back into a structure that can offer the community that which they were accustomed to and even more? So, but in order to do that, you first had to look at how do you categorize the areas of importance. So what I did with the staff, we looked at the overall deliverables that they have been delivering over the years, and we categorized the teams that also comes out into activities into 3 main teams. The team of literacy development from group 0 to 5, and then 5 and up, and also cultural development and social and personal development. So what we did together, we looked at all the programs that the library have been offering the community of St. Martin, even with their limitations in space, and also with the challenge we have been having the last 2-3 years with this social distancing and people doing their best to stay as safe as they could. How can we now come up with activities? How can we come up with programs? How can we come up with projects and keep the library alive, in a sense, in the mind of the people. So I would say together with everyone, we were able to make a difference in that sense. And it's getting a little better now. And then we got a little setback again in the last month with, again, people having to stay away. Mm-hmm. But I can say we have really seen an improvement in visitors to I call it our little boutique library upstairs, at this point, upstairs at Adolphus Richardson office. It's really cozy, and it's up to you, to make it your choice to say, let me go and visit the library. Let me bring my children to the library. So I'm hoping that being there, that the contribution would continue to be that which would make the library stand out as it has always stood out for many years, for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. So, with that, one of the things I'm curious about is how many goods, let's say, or resources were able to be saved from Irma, as far as books, maybe computers, the archives, and so forth. I guess what was the gravity of the impact of the hurricane? But was the library able to save a reasonable amount of its goods?
Yes, we were able to save a good bit of books. As a matter of fact, that's why I said interesting, exciting, because since last year, November, and prior to that, we embarked on an inventory project where we are now moving the books from the container to a classroom at the Leonard Connor School, and twice or three times a week, the staff is going there, and we are doing an inventory. We have over 40-something thousand books.
Wow.
That are stored in the container.
And they're not damaged or anything?
Some of them are damaged, and that's what they're doing now. They are looking at the state of the books.
Okay.
And they are also cataloging the books, those that are not cataloged. And we are also going to do a project where we're going to be looking at how can we distribute those books that are still of good quality to like the play schools, to the youth groups, to the after-school programs, so that the children there or the youngsters there can use the books, because it doesn't make any sense having books and these children, for whatever reason, because as you know too, with our hurricanes, a lot of us at home with children lose books. Mm-hmm. So you can tell a child to read a book, but if you don't have a book for him or her to read, he or she can't read a book.
Correct.
So we've, as I said, we've saved over 40-something thousand books in the library itself, upstairs by the Adolphus Richardson building. We have another maybe 5,000 books. And we also have two satellites, which we call outlets, extra accessible venues of the library. Mm-hmm. There we also have almost another 2,000 books that persons can access to read, or children can access to read. Mm-hmm. So if you put that together, we can say we have about 50-something thousand books or more, because I don't have the number in my head, that persons can access. And as you may know too, we also invested a lot in the last few years in digital reading, online reading, e-books. So as a member of the library, you not only have access to our physical books, you can also log into our electronic books. And last year, I have been saying that, not the year before, wow, the years are going so far. Mm-hmm. I think in 2020, we also hooked up with the Kingdom Library in The Hague.
Yes, I saw that.
And as a member, you also have access to their electronic books.
Okay. So, and how much does it cost to be a member of the library?
Well, it hasn't changed. Actually, youngsters from 0 to 12 doesn't cost anything. Those at secondary level, I think it only costs them about 10 guilders a year. and a 25 guilders subscription fee, which lasts until you're 60 over. And I think adults is 25. The elderly don't I think they also don't pay anything.
Okay, gotcha. And so how do you go about updating your collection of books? What is that process like?
Okay, what we have been doing, as I said, we are busy with an inventory. We've also gotten some books from Biblionef in Holland. So the staff there, they monitor the inventory on a regular basis. And while we are doing this inventory at the moment, they are going to be weeding out those books that basically, to replace them with updated books. But then again, as a member, once you go on to our platform, on our system, you can see if the book is there. So maybe if you come into the library and the book is not on the shelf, once you give the name of the book, the librarians can look in the system and they can tell you, okay, pass for this afternoon or whatever like that. So we had a challenge with reshelving, because we didn't know exactly what we had in the container.
Gotcha.
We had them listed, but we didn't know the quality, the status of the book. So we are hoping, it's a lot of books and it's not a lot of us.
Yeah, that's true.
So we are hoping at least before before June, if not before, to have finalized that inventory project. But in the meantime, we're going to be bringing back and moving back and those things. And now we have 3 locations. So that's going to make it even more better, because you'll have books in all 3 locations.
Okay. So the bottom line there is, y'all, before you even get to the updating phase, you definitely need to sift through what you have. Yeah, okay, I understand that.
And remember, we're open every day. So during your whole operations, you also have to schedule this in with different staff members. And what is interesting, I was just in a Zoom meeting with all the representatives of all the islands, all the libraries, not in Curaçao, Aruba, Bonaire. I don't think Stacia logged on today, Sabre, and we were just discussing how can we make library works more interesting for students to be interested in becoming a librarian or to be interested in working in a library. So
yes, because it's a career. It's a career choice.
It's a career, but what was on the table was, unfortunately, our departments of education and our government institutions, etc., they, as you know, I came from education. I haven't seen much emphasis on promoting or encouraging students to follow a trend of an educational path to become a librarian. And it's really an interesting path. So that is something we're discussing now. How do you make library work more visible?
And it has innovated as well. It has gone beyond just, I guess that the concept people have maybe of just someone sitting at a desk and telling you where a book is.
Yeah,
it's far more interesting.
Yeah, because I always see you there too. So no, because people needs to hear it, because a lot of people, as you said, think, why should I come to a library? I could buy a book.
Listen, when I
can order a book on Amazon.
The library is my first place that I go to.
Yeah.
Till this day, Yeah. Till this day, especially if it's locally based research.
Yeah.
The best place to go first for me is a library, and then maybe go to some seniors, and then, but definitely the library.
Yeah, because what we don't have, we could always recommend. We can, give you a link to check something else. But this library really have a lot of information.
Yes, it does.
It has a lot of information. We may not have it all on display, but once you get in the system, we can guide you through it.
Yeah. And what even as you mentioned that, because I was glad to find out that, for example, library had, you guys even digitize a lot of old newspapers.
Yes, we do that still.
You had a few of the profiles of the Winter Island
Newsday.
Yeah, and
Today.
Listen, those are very much necessary, information for our island. It basically the library is plays a part in capturing and preserving our heritage.
It's so true. Our literacy and heritage. That's important.
So, as you mentioned, so when I asked a question about, the membership fee, perhaps maybe it could be changed a bit to be raised. And I say that because I'm curious about, libraries funding. For persons who may not know, do you receive a subsidy? And what other ways do you generate income?
We receive a subsidy through the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, and we are very grateful for that. I think we fall under the Culture Department, I guess because of the heritage and the history and the whole archiving and preserving that whole historical aspect of literature. So out of funding, we also get donations. We also get grants depending on the projects. I spoke earlier about the satellites. The satellites project was made possible through a grant from our 4CR. And so we are also looking at how can we receive other funding, because the subsidy that we receive from the government is mainly, it carries a lot of the personnel expenses. Mm-hmm. And of course, we have to every year, and I can probably say that for the 2 years I'm here, that we have to do an audit report.
Yes, for sure.
And I can probably say the library is untasked with that in terms of substantiating what you're using the funds for, because that is very important. You can't take money from somebody and don't be able to account for it.
Definitely.
So the same thing goes with those that give us donations, those that give us when we get a grant. As you know, getting a grant is not a walk in the park.
Yeah.
There are so many criteria that you have to meet before you consider getting a grant. So that, again, is an accomplishment for the library, that you work in such an efficient manner that you qualify for a grant or any kind of funding.
Correct. So one of the things I'm also curious about is, what was it like getting the location you have now? And then I would definitely like to go into the process now of getting, the library rebuilt.
What? I didn't get the first part. Sorry.
So what was it like getting a location you have now? Because it's temporary.
Uh-huh.
And also, so I'll let you answer that, and I would like to then go into the process of getting the library rebuilt.
Well, fortunate for me, when I got hired, they had already had the location. What was discussed when I got into it was that, how can we get a bigger location? But then when you look at your budget, when you look at your funds, you realize that is not a wise thing to do, because any location in the town area is not cheap if it's not yours. So that's why we went into the project of getting satellites. And remember, when I got in there in 2020, we also had the situation with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And with persons not having accessibility into town, transport-wise, the elderly. Like, for instance, where we are there upstairs, Adolphus Richardson building, it's difficult for persons with a little challenge, a physical challenge, to get up the steps. So all of that contributed towards us really looking at areas in the communities. The one is in Belvedere, one is in Cahill, so that other people can also access our services. So the whole challenge in terms of locating there, I didn't really experience that, but now I'm part of what do we do now to ensure that our services are up to par.
Gotcha. And so with the library, being slated to be rebuilt, what update can you provide us with that, and where does that project currently stand?
What I can say on an operational level, because I'm the director of operations, there have been discussions with all the stakeholders, which includes the Ministry of Education, NRPB, the World Bank, and the discussions have reached a point at the end of 2021 where now it has been determined that a new library building will be built. And we are really hoping that it really takes off, I think, in the second part of this year, where we would be able to open our doors at least by 2023, November, where we will be celebrating 100 years. So it's going to have to go on a fast track from now. But it's looking very positive. There's always some logistics. There's always some details that have to be in place. But having the new building, I think, is really going to be beneficial on a lot of levels. Because the challenge we have now, even with having schools come into the library, you have to limit the amount in where we at. The same thing as the satellites. Even there at the Cahill School, the Hillside Christian School, Asher Stevens schools, only a certain amount of children can come into the satellite. While once we get a new building, there will be different stations, there will be different entrances, in that sense that you can more control the traffic into it. And
so you can say, or we can expect a state-of-the-art library?
Yes. I mean, there is no other choice. I mean, if you rebuild your house, it's not advisable to build it the same as it was. And the population has grown also. And earlier we spoke about the different types of services that a library offers. And you have to expand on that. I remember when the library was still up and running, you had the area where persons would be studying. You had other
you had a kids
digital
zone.
area. You had a kids room. Lab, you had a media lab. And you had the little room where they do stories.
Yes, and then where the open space where they host events as well.
Yes, for different programs. So, of course, these are going to be much more elevated to meet the times now. Right? I sometimes when I'm going through my papers back home, I always recall when I came back to St. Martin that I was among the group of teachers that told story time in the afternoon in that little cove there. And that was such a nice experience that, you do that after work. And then the parents would bring their children and you would tell the stories. I say at that time, I never thought about being where I am in the library today. And I always tell people as an educator, it depends, it's upon you to how you move. And every experience builds you as a person.
Correct. Because one thing I'm thinking with the whole rebuilding is definitely as well that the library play an important role in being a sort of a technological hub as well.
Yes, it is.
We're diversifying. Times has changed, and so the core functions will be necessary. But then to add, just to add on and adapt with where the world is heading, where St. Martin also is heading with its own national plan, so to speak. Because with that, we do understand with so many projects, unfortunately, it took a while, frankly. With the World Bank and so forth, whether it was certain schools being rebuilt, now seeing
it's going
the airport and whatnot. So it's good to know that we can expect construction this year. And for clarity as well, the primary location of the library is the library owns that land.
Yes, it's leased. The library owns the lease for that property.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it will be back at the same place.
Okay.
I know a lot of people was worried about that, but it's definitely going to be at the same location.
Okay, I was wondering if it'll maybe move to somewhere else.
No. Gotcha. I library should be in the center.
It's a sweet spot. Yeah,
it should be in the center. People can have all the ideas And as you know, growing up here, and as we see how the world is turning, a lot of people forget where they came from. I'm sorry, I have to say that you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have, if what you're doing is not based on moral and values that are conducive to your development of people, all the money in the world don't make you who you are. And a library or a museum or any other of such entity should be in a location where your people can get to it. You know, a lot of us would say, oh, it has to be there for the tourists. I am not saying it has to be there for the tourists. It has to be there for my children, my grandchildren, your cousins, that's because we make up the people of St. Martin.
Yeah, I mean, and then like the name itself, Philipsburg Jubilee Library, right? So it should be part of the pride of town.
Which is a St. Martin library.
Correct.
And if it's a St. Martin library, it has to be a library that the people living in St. Martin, whether you are living here, whether you're visiting, whether you're going to school here, if you're doing projects, you should be able to have access to it without having to go in some other place to get the library.
Gotcha. And even as you, for example, you mentioned the museum, I know that in the past there's often been talks about there's a museum library coming together, maybe sharing a space and so forth. Has that been something that you've worked or dealt with while being director?
Yes, we have discussed it, but it has come down to the point where the funding that was that's being offered is for the rebuilding of a new library. So any collaboration after that can be worked out. But right now the focus is on reconstructing a building to house the new library.
Okay.
Yeah? And if I may, I just would like to add this. I don't know how much more time we have.
No, we have time, so you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to the fact that I said we focus on literacy programs, cultural programs, personal development, and social programs, I would like to bring in here that last year all the libraries connected to the Kingdom Library also received funding for a entrepreneurship project. Now, I am fully aware of the fact that there are a lot of institutions or bodies also involved in promoting entrepreneurship. As a young man, I know you are also into entrepreneurship with your wife, and those are good things. I always tell people I wish that when we were younger, myself and some of my peers were younger, that we were given that orientation in terms of getting your own business. So the library also is busy with an entrepreneurship project. We have been talking with different entities, and we have just received our first set of books that we're going to be putting out on the shelf for our young entrepreneurs or any level of entrepreneurs to come and get at the library. Yes, they can say, I can just go and Google something. That's the latest talk. But we have already gotten our first, 30-something or more books. And these are going to be available for the public. And we also just recently did a survey at one of the youth organizations to find out how our youngsters are thinking about entrepreneurship. And our next step after this first survey, which was actually done by the youth brigade, as a matter of fact, with this survey, because if you are going to be catering for an age group from 0 to 18 or 16 to 18, you need to know how the persons are thinking. And for that, I would like to also applaud the Chamber of Commerce, because they have been going into the schools and also promoting entrepreneurship and giving the directive as to when you choose to be a direct entrepreneur, what you have to do to ensure that you're on the right path. So we are going to be working with the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to be working with the schools, and we are going to be offering the literature, not only books, but also audios and different things for the people of St. Martin or whoever is somewhere else and they can log into our system.
Gotcha. Okay. And so with that, what additional activities or programs are currently going on at the library? I know that, one of the hallmark programs were like the Readers Are Leaders and so forth. So what activities you currently have going on?
We have the Black History Month program, which is coming up in February. In March, April, we are going to venture out again on promoting digital accessibility, using your devices, etc., to really make yourself knowledgeable. We also already have a project online again for the elderly, because there was a program some 2 years ago, it had to stop, where we were offering trainings, sessions to the elderly as to how to use the internet, how to get on internet, how to do their banking system. And so we want to do that again, but we have to watch how the health situation going. Yeah. We're going to be teaming up with that school on Back Street, Rainbow Readers.
Rainbow, I think. I know
Reading Rainbow.
Yeah, I
yes.
think that's it. I forget. Yeah,
we also was approached by the Helping Hands Foundation. That's yes, that they also have some seniors that are interested in learning. So we are hoping, we have the project there, but you have to be careful how you in terms of social distance, because you cannot put anybody in harm's way.
Yes, especially seniors and
we will continue again with our book week. We will be looking at what can we do to encourage youngsters to read more. We've had 2 wonderful programs over the last year where we focused on that book, Everything is Everything, where we had a book discussion with some youngsters. Last year we focused on the book from Jennifer Brooks on how you look at your beauty as a black woman / black man, and how does the pride in that. And this year we're going to work on focusing on book reviews again. We have not been really into book reviews the last few years for a lot of different reasons.
That sounds good.
But book reviews is going to take center stage again of the library this year, because we have to really stay on task in terms of reading, as you say, comprehension, also being able to express yourself properly, using proper grammar, and also being able to come out and speak. So we're going to focus on book reviews this year. We're going to keep our poetry competitions. We're going to keep we brought out a book last year where it was a book in making from the 2 years, how people dealt with COVID. Mm-hmm. It was well received. And with the same entrepreneur project I spoke about, we're also going to be seeking funding, because we're looking at getting youngsters to write their story, young people to write their story about entrepreneurship. And then we want to publish that book. So that's exciting, because one of the things in the discussion was, yes, it's nice to offer books that we get from online, but it's nice for people to read a story about Ralph. It's nice for people to read a story about someone who have a car wash, someone who have a parlor, a local person, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, whether you're young, middle-aged, or older. But this one is going to be focusing on the younger group of entrepreneurs on St. Martin.
That's really nice. I like that mixture of outreach and inclusion.
Yes.
Because then the library remains in people's hearts, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. which is good. So, even with that, are there any volunteer services at the library where persons can help out or contribute in any way?
We are always open for that. Like right now, we need some help with the same
container.
Yes, but also we need some help with the books that we receive from BiblioNef. We need to catalog them, we need to label them, and we need to put them on the shelf. So we are actually right now discussing how can we get some volunteers to help us with that, because they would have to be trained first as to how to catalog and how to book them in the system, or else the staff at the library will have to go back over all of that. So if there's anybody out there that computer savvy that, is willing to learn how to catalog books and even plastifying books. I don't know if, when I used to go to school, we had to cover every book that we get for that year. And I think when my son used to go to, and my daughter and others, you get the books for the year, but you had to cover them and carry them to school. I haven't done that in a long time. Yes. So we also need help with that in terms of how you plastify the book.
Honestly, you could even do a workshop on that.
Yes, we need to do that. Yeah, because if we can get some help with that, because it's not a lot of us at the library right now. So anybody out there listening, if you would like to volunteer a Saturday morning, let's say from 10 to 1, because we are open then, we would gladly organize a training we want in the next 2 weeks, so you can learn how to catalog, and then we could organize another time you learn how to plastify the books, and that would take away a lot of strain from the staff.
Gotcha.
So we are right now looking for some persons that are willing to do that until we finish.
Okay. So then finally, I think I would end it on, you definitely shared a bit about, your aim, goal, focus to really get the library kind of penetrated in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
And so with, for example, having books at, I think you said was I forget which school you mentioned, was it the Lionel?
No, we are taking the books there. We were lucky. They gave us a classroom.
Okay, got you. Yes.
Where we can do our inventory.
Yes. So then now I remember.
The inventory project.
So then, but I guess my question then is, in what ways will the library be connecting more with schools to, whether do some reading programs and, just continue to build that, build on the platform of getting children and getting students to get into reading.
Okay. Again, this week, as you know, we have our Wednesday virtual program, Storytime, on the Facebook.
Okay.
And we also have the Saturday program on Facebook at 11. We received a call from a school asking us to be on their platform to have a book discussion about a particular story. So I think with what we're dealing with now, I can say out there, we are willing to also look into that possibility where you not only integrate our Wednesday story times from our Facebook and our Saturday, but also make schedule when our storytellers or readers can come into the school on your digital platform and have that discussion with your students. That, as I said, whatever we are doing now, we have to be so careful about how you interact. Last year, we were able to go in and do some story time. We were able to go in and do things. But right now, we had to pull back.
Yeah.
We really had to pull back because the schools themselves are struggling with trying how to handle their situation. But we are available. Of course, we would have to set a time and date for it to be on your platform and to have you also encourage your children to listen to the stories on our Facebook page and send in questions. So we are available to work with the schools, but right now the time we are living in does not permit us that freedom. But feel free to approach us anytime, and then we would work out something with any schools that want us there. In terms of the schools, we are also discussing working with schools to revamp their little school library. Because a lot of schools have a lot of books, thrown all over in a room.
That's kind of true, yeah.
And nobody's using the books. So, again, we are hoping when we get our new building and we most probably add some staff and everything and get some volunteers to work with the schools. And we've had that discussion with some of the schools last year. We're in 2022. To work with them to see how they can organize the books they have in school. Or, I always say people, when I used to teach, I say, listen, it's best you sell a child a book for 50 cents or 25 cents than have the book there sitting down doing anything. That's a way, too, for the schools to get rid of all of these books that they're not really using and clear up the whole magazine. So get the books out and give away to those that can't afford. But I always believe people should pay something, kind of put a little bit more value to it. Even if it's 10 cents. At least, I buy this book for 10 cents. I just saw it on Amazon for $20. Some years after. You catch what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It gives meaning to the value of the book. So I'm encouraging the teachers, the managers, and the principals, directors, to get the books out of the magazine.
Yeah. And
to encourage your children to value books as much as they value their cell phone.
iPad, right? I hear you because, I asked you that thinking about schools, but then I realized, it's also important to reach out to the parents because, like with all forms of leadership, it starts at the top. So, children also mimic what they see their parents do.
From within.
Yeah, yes. So I think it's also important to also do outreach for parents or adults and increase adult literacy so that,
have a little book sale in school. Books, you put it up, books on sale for 25 cents. Proud a child would be if that's their book and they ask the parents for the money. Some of them have, what do you call those things? Allowance. Some of them, teach them to start valuing something that they contributed to. And I don't get me started about parents because the reason why you, myself, and a lot of others can read today is because our parents made time to ensure that we read. You know what I always laughed? I used to go to church with this neighbor, and sometimes I would sit next to her, and she's singing every verse out of that song. And one day, I looked across, and she had the book upside down. But she isn't missing a verse or a sentence. So when I went home, I said, Mommy, don't think I'm rude, but how Miss So-and-so was singing and the book was upside down, And she said to me, since you asked, Miss So-and-so can't read. But she go to church every Sunday. She learned the songs out her head, and she's well-dressed and everything, and she doesn't miss a beat. So I'm saying that to say to people, the same thing with the Bible. I'm sure this person makes sure her son or her daughter went to school. And what I always found so interesting growing up is that my parents, none of them spoke Dutch, but all of us went to a school with Dutch as language of instruction. Mm-hmm. And they knew when your homework wasn't correct or whatever you were doing. So I'm saying, but you had to show them that you finished your maths, you finished your Dutch, they check it. You don't know what they're checking, but at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So and my mom used to say to us, listen here, you're the one sitting in the seat, so don't come home and tell me you don't understand. Pay attention, listen, so you could tell me what it is I have to check. You know? So I'm saying again with parents, there is no excuse. I used to tell the teachers at the school where I work, there's no excuse for not making that 5, 10, 15 minutes to check your child's schoolwork, to let your child read a story even though you can't read, and help that child to understand that he or she is doing this for his or her own good.
Correct, because it helps them to overcome their insecurities and challenges, and it gives them that confidence. Because I can remember some of my fondest memories. As a little boy, it was my father sitting out early morning with me, going through a bunch of, it was those old, remember those old Caribbean books they used to help you learn English and so forth.
Yeah, like encyclopedias, etc., with the different information.
Yes, and in particular, for example, when with both my parents being Haitian, but when people meet my mom in particular, they could never tell. Reason being because my mom would read everything. Read a newspaper, read a can, read a bottle, read street signs.
Yeah, they educated us.
Growing up, I remember in vocabulary, she always used to, whenever I had vocabulary, she always used to study it with me.
Yeah.
So then that even helped her.
It encouraged you. It helps her also. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think sometimes we shouldn't settle. Correct. And we shouldn't make excuses not to encourage the children to read and to visit the library. And I told this to a little niece of mine the other day. If you're a member of the Philipsburg Jubilee Library and your card is valid, or even if it's not valid, you can get it renewed and you could tap into our electronic books. Sometimes I get calls from former students. Do you all have a book like that at the library? I'll say yes, but then you have to renew your membership because that's my job. I have to make sure the membership keeps going up, and I do have to thank all of those over 500 and something persons that renewed their membership last year, because that is a good sign. And once you have that code wherever you are in the world, you can log in. So there's no excuse for our St. Martin students that they can make use of the Philipsburg Jubilee Library.
Yeah, gotcha. And what also comes to mind, even as you mentioned that with membership, is I know oftentimes you guys do these drives for persons to return books.
Yes.
So
grace period.
Yeah.
And amaze me because you put it on the Facebook, you put it on the Twitter, you put it in the newspaper, you come on the radio, and then you'll hear, and it's usually 2 weeks. And then the week when it stopped, then somebody will come with their books that are late. And then it's like, why I have to pay all of this late fee? Because we do this like twice, sometimes 3 times a year. So you also have to pay attention. And it's not that we want to take your money, but it is a business. The library is a business. And the fees is hardly anything. The other day we were speaking again in one of the inter-islands meetings, and they were asking what the fee was. Just like I told you earlier, 10 guilders or 25 guilders, and they were like, "You guys still charge guilders?" I said, "Of course, we still have the Netherlands Antilles guilders, but at the end of the day, it's about what's important to you." And regardless to where you end up in life, if you do not see reading as a lifelong opportunity to participate in the development of your country, you're always going to be met with different challenges. And the library is glad to bring this, to nurture this awareness to people. We are also glad to be able to provide an environment of technology, and we also offer internet connectivity. Sometimes when we are going home, people are still on the porch, either doing extra lessons or doing afternoon classes and using the Wi-Fi connectivity. And on that note, if I may thank Flow/UTS, because they sponsor our entire internet connectivity.
Okay.
And I think that remember you asked me where we get help.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get help in kind, sometimes you get help in money. But I mean, for a company to be sponsoring your internet connectivity, not only at the main building, but also at the 2 other outlets, I can't leave here without thanking them for that. And we're looking forward to continue working with them, because it's a good service to the community of St. Martin.
Definitely. And then I guess one more finally. Do you still manage, I think you guys had outlet at USM as well too?
No, the USM is on its own.
Okay.
But I was made to understand that the library had a role in establishing and getting the library there.
Oh, okay.
Put together.
Okay.
But
gotcha.
last year I had a discussion with Mr.
Carmona, the president. Yeah.
And we need to start looking again how we can have that exchange in terms of the library and the university. And as I said earlier, the library and the schools. To me, it's important that our membership grow, but it's also important that we don't have books laying around in schools, in community groups, and the youngsters and people are not using them.
For sure. All right, Ms. Holiday, I would like to thank you so much for coming to the program. Is there any final words you'd like to share?
Yes, I would just like to say again, thank you. And I would like to remind the people of St. Martin that the library is the gateway for information in St. Martin and also wherever you go. And that it is important for us to continue supporting local written and oral literature for the educational development of the people in general.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you as well for tuning into today's program, and do take care.